Okay, so we're underneath the car. It's certainly seen worse. I don't like that. That's not fun. Blah, blah. Mama's a killer. Anyone up for some frog legs? Alrighty, we are ready to tackle the engine bay. We've taken care of cleaning out the trunk, we've cleaned out the main cabin interior, and before we get to doing any of the mechanical maintenance, you know, the oil change, the coolant, filters, brakes, all of that type of stuff, we want to clean the engine bay. And it's really important for us to do that because, number one, it'll make it a lot easier to see what's wrong. You know, sometimes road gunk and grease and other stuff builds up and it ends up hiding cracks. It ends up hiding contamination, corrosion, broken bolts, you name it. If there's gunk and grime and buildup on it, it's going to be very difficult for us to tell if it's actually broken or not, or if it's just dirty. So step one is to come in here. We're going to clean as much as we can. We're not really going to be disassembling anything. Things like the coolant overflow, we can take care of that while we're flushing the system. So for now, we're really just going to try to wipe down as much as possible, and we'll leave as much of it intact. Of course, as we keep going, we're going to keep cleaning. But for now, we just want to get started with the big pieces. So we'll wipe off the valve cover, we'll wipe off the exterior of a lot of these components, we'll take a vacuum cleaner to the inside, we'll even go underneath and we'll take screwdrivers, plastic picks, rags, you name it. We're going to try to take off as much as possible so that when we finally do start doing our maintenance, maybe we're not getting ourselves as dirty, we're not getting our tools as dirty, we're not getting everything as dirty as it otherwise would. So let's get started. Okay, I had to stop real quick because it's snowing and we're inside because it's snowing and we need to protect Mama and make sure that she's not exposed to all the elements. But this is super exciting. We're gonna take a look outside real quick. Oh, yes, it's a winter wonderland. It's so nice. It's gonna be a whiteout. I wonder if all my parts are gonna show up. Probably not. No, we're not getting any parts today. Oh well, all right, back inside. That was enough fun for one day. Okay, so we've cleaned the top, more or less, of the engine. We've wiped down as many components as we can. Ultimately, it was just a lot of dust that we were able to get rid of, but it's much easier to see some of the parts now. For example, something that I found that I think is exciting, but we won't know until later, is that it looks like the AC was switched out from R12 fittings to R134A fittings. So with any luck, that means that when we finally do get around to testing or possibly charging, repairing the AC system, we don't have to worry about doing the conversion from R12 to R134. But that's just a hunch. It's got those little quick disconnect couplers, so I'm hoping that it's actually 134 instead of R12. But I mean, then again, R12 seems to be a hot commodity, so I guess maybe I could capture it, you know, go to a shop, get it captured, and then resell it, but I don't know. For now, we're going to go underneath the car. I'll bring you with me, and we'll get even dirtier down there. But the main goal down there is just to get up all the building gunk and grime that is sludgy and gross and was much closer to the road. So there's gonna be a lot more down there that we're gonna have to work through. But from the top, we've been able to get rid of most of the stuff. It's looking pretty clean. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm happy with the progress we were able to make up top. And yeah. Okay, so I just noticed this, and if you don't live in a place where it snows, you very likely, won't experience this or see it. But if you see all those little white specks on there, that is road salt that has embedded itself a little bit onto the paint. So if you ever wondered how road salts end up just corroding, materials, it's really just because they sit on there, and then moisture reacts with it, and the paint just degrades over time, and you get these pock marks. I don't know if you can see it, but even where I wipe away, you can see little spots where that salt used to be. And ultimately, if you leave it on there for too long, it just deteriorates everything it touches, which then gets to the metal, which then causes it to rust, and then you end up with an underbody that looks like mine. So if you don't want that to happen, you've got a couple different options. The easiest one is obviously don't drive when in the winter, when it might snow. The other one is try your best to wash the underside of your car as best as you can every time you come back from a drive. And I know that's not practical, so it's one of those things where it's an uphill, it feels like a losing battle all the time, but if you can, every little bit counts. And even if you just postpone the deterioration and the rusting for a year or 2 or 3, it's a year or 2 or 3 that you don't have to get back under here and look at all this. So just thought I'd point that out. If you do live in a place that salts your roads, make sure you clean the underside of your car. Okay, so we're underneath the car, and I found a little critter who didn't seem to survive. He certainly has seen better days. I think it's a frog, so we'll get him out and try to check that out. Oh man, he's really in there. It's basically like mummified. Oh yeah, maybe we got him. Oh, that poor guy. Well, Mama's a killer. Anyone up for some frog legs? I think they're a little overdone, but I don't know if we're gonna be able to salvage them. What we're looking at is a lot of grease, a lot of gunk buildup. Nothing too bad, but again, we do want to clean everything we can from underneath here. But so far, it's not too bad. It's mostly just caked on stuff on top of painting. Let's make sure I'm not getting this on my face. So yeah, you can scratch a good amount of that away. Something that does concern me here is, and we'll get to this with the mechanical check because obviously this is on that list, but the steering axle boots are not on top. So we'll inspect it further. We'll make sure that all the grease that needs to be in there is good and not old and dirty and ruined. But if it turns out that it's all gunked up, we'll obviously have to replace these. So then again, it was driving fine, so maybe it can make it back down to Philly, and that's something I can do back at my house, but definitely want to try to... Definitely want to what? Okay, so status update. I spent about an hour underneath the car. I used picks, I used the plastic wedge tools for trim removal, I used rags, I used degreasers, I used a handful of different techniques and strategies to try to clean off down there, but it is gross. It's probably 30 years of grime in there. I don't know, honestly, just like the interior, I don't know when the last time this thing's actually been cleaned. So I think for now, for the best effort or the best use of my time would be to keep the engine bay dirty, at least on the underside, and wait until it's a little bit nicer out. And when it is, I'll go to a car wash, I'll get a power washer under there. I think a steam cleaner would actually be better. Steam is really good at removing grease and oils and other caked on stuff, but I don't have access to that. So I'll at least use a power washer. We'll get under there, we'll try to clean it out. And even some pieces like the transmission, it may actually be easier to remove it, clean it on the outside when it's sitting on a bench somewhere, and then put it back in. It'll also afford us better access to the undercarriage of the car so we can see how the rust is down there. I saw some parts, but the chassis itself actually looks like it's pretty rust free. It's got a little bit of superficial rust, but I didn't see any big holes or any other glaring issues that I should be worried about. So we're gonna put a pause on cleaning the engine bay. That's gonna be a wrap for today's episode. Unfortunately, I lost some footage and I didn't realize that until I was editing today's episode. But the fortunate news is that we didn't make that much of a dent in the underside. As my previous self just gave you an update on, there's a lot underneath there, and we really do need to go back with something a little more powerful. Very likely a pressure washer. So stay tuned for that. We will get under there and clean all of that out in a future episode, of course. If you were surprised by what we saw in today's episode, give me a thumbs up. Let me know that I caught you off guard. If you enjoyed today's episode and you've got a project of your own that's going on, just like I said in the previous videos, I'd love to hear about it. I want to know what projects you've got. And finally, if you want to know when each new episode drops, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification. That way you'll be up to date with each new episode. And if you're not following me on Instagram, I mentioned a new project that's coming up, and I will be sharing more of that information there before we get some of the videos put together to upload here. So if you want to know what's going on behind the scenes, be sure to follow me on Instagram. It's the same name, and I've linked to it below in the description. For now, this has been another episode of Zach Does It, and I can't wait to see you on the next one.